we should all have happiness in our life, right? And if your work, especially the thing that you're doing a lot of your life does not bring you joy, then what are you doing? Like
So much. We spend so much time.
so much time work. And so when you look at your life, like we spend years of our lives working and making money and making an impact and doing all of these things. You might as well like it, right? Or you might as well love it. Better yet, it might as well bring you joy.
Hello and welcome to the Thought Partners podcast. I'm Ed.
And I'm Paul. And today, in our space, in our arena, where we help leaders and really all humans thrive, we are thrilled to be joined by and to welcome Nicki, a true mompreneur who's built a thriving digital marketing business while fully embracing motherhood and partnership. Since 2008, she's helped small business owners find their online voice. And after the birth of her son in 2019, she redesigned everything: fewer hours, more balance, and greater impact. Through her course, Being Mompreneur, she now helps other moms build businesses that fit their lives rather than compete with them. And Nicki, you also host your own podcast, so we may pick your brain about that too as we learn this craft ourselves. So Nicki,
Absolutely.
welcome to the Thought Partners podcast.
Well, thank you guys. I'm so thrilled to be here with you.
What are you thinking, feeling, or experiencing today?
I love that question. I am thinking that I'm loving fall. It's fall here in Florida, and we're having a very fall-like day, so I'm very appreciative of that. It's my birthday tomorrow, so I am a fall baby, and I love everything about autumn. And I'm feeling good. I'm happy to be here, and I'm about 8 months pregnant right now, so feeling good is a very good thing. I'm very
You will
thankful for
take
that.
those days and you will celebrate them.
Yes.
Well,
What?
as a fellow fall baby, I will say that there's really no other time to be born. It's not their fault they're not born then, but it's
I love that.
not their fault. But we do celebrate that.
I celebrate fall babies. I'm not a fall baby. I was born in May. I'm a Taurus all the way.
Mm,
But happy early birthday.
thank you. I appreciate it.
And Ed, you're a fall birthday too. When's your birthday?
October 2nd.
Happy belated.
Happy belated.
Thank you.
And Nicki, for any listeners who don't live in Florida and think about fall, matter of fact, Ed just told me that some of our listenership is in England.
Yeah,
So
we learned that earlier this week.
or in the UK somewhere.
Very nice.
And so can you talk to them a little bit about what fall in Florida means to you?
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from the north, Maryland and then Maine. So that is a true fall where the leaves are changing and it's beautiful. Fall in Florida is a little bit different. I'm in St. Augustine and Paul's a little bit closer to Orlando. And Ed, you're not in Florida,
I'm not. I'm in Ohio where we have true
Ohio.
fall.
You have true fall. Okay. So you have the leaves changing everything. If things get orange or brown here, it's because it's dying. It's not because of foliage. And that's okay because there's at least a little bit more of a crisp in the air. And by crisp in the air, I mean it's 60, 65 degrees Fahrenheit. But at least you need like a 3/4 length shirt or maybe a sweater if you're feeling frisky when you walk out in the morning. So I'm very thankful for fall. We have 3 seasons here. I gave up the snow when I came to Florida, and I have not looked back because I don't ever want to shovel a driveway again. So I'm so sorry, Ed, because I feel for you.
It's a good way to get your exercise. You get your
Absolutely.
steps, you get your physical activity. And actually, the last couple of years, it hasn't been too bad. Last year was pretty heavy, but overall, we've had really mild winters lately or recently, which, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I signed up for it as a Northeast Ohio resident. So what am I going to do?
Exactly.
That's true. I heard you mention 3 seasons in Florida. Can you tell me what those 3 seasons are?
Hot, hotter, and hottest. um, no, I think there's fall. It feels like fall to me all winter long, right?
Yeah.
Like from about now, like November through till like February, maybe March, depends on the year. It's a little iffy, and then spring's pretty nice. That's good beach weather in my opinion, 70s, 80s, and then there's summertime, which is basically just stay inside time or be in water. If you're not inside or in water, then there's just no point because
Yep.
it's
Running from air
100 degrees, humid. Um, your blood thins though. I mean, at least when you move to Florida, like you acclimate to it
Sure.
very quickly, but it's uncomfortable outside,
Oh, in the
just
summertime
plain
for
and simple.
sure. It's like a don't go, like run from air conditioned room to air conditioned
Yeah,
room. You have to cool the car
absolutely.
down. It is painfully hot. People ask about
Yes.
summers in Florida, and I say, do you like being wet and hot all the time? Because that's what summer in Florida is.
Yes, exactly. It's true.
Trying to breathe under a wet blanket.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. So, Nikki, you have been building websites and content since 2008. What
hmm
drew you into that world? When did you realize that you could design work around life instead of the other way around?
So in 2008, I was graduating from college in Maine, and I was doing the dance of, applying to a bunch of jobs. And I had this very polar opposite situation where I had whittled the job opportunities down to basically working for a large insurance company and being an underwriter and doing the corporate life, or joining the team at a small web design, web development firm in Portland, Maine. And it very quickly became clear to me that was not meant for corporate life. The second I stepped in the offices, it just isn't me. I have a deep appreciation for it, for those that it's right for, but it just wasn't right for me. And I lucked out in the web design company because th- at the time in 2008, SEO and search engine optimization was not very much of a household term. Nobody really knew what it was. Nobody really understood it. And the firm took a chance on me and said, we're willing to train you on how to do this. And my degree was in marketing. So I at least had sort of the foundation. And they liked that I didn't have any sort of preconceived notions about what SEO was and how we could sort of uh, they call it black hat, which is sort of the negative side of SEO, where you do kind of all the dangerous, not okay things for Google. Um, and at that time, there were a lot of those tactics kind of popping around because they worked for people. So, long story short, they took a chance on me, sent me to a bunch of trainings. I learned on the job for probably a good part of that first year, where we just majorly discounted projects for clients, and I just literally learned on the job. And it very quickly became clear to me that uh, even though my job and my role was around SEO. And so for those of you that don't have experience with it, or just so that we're all on the same level, SEO is basically the practice of helping your website rank higher on the search engines so that your people can find you. Um, and these days, and we can get into this later, but these days that has a whole different meaning thanks to AI and the way
Mhm.
things have changed. But at the time, I was doing a lot of research and finding that people, even though I basically would provide, like, these are the keywords that you need to use, these are the things we need to do to your website, very quickly realized people had no idea what to do with that. And so I soon became a copywriter as well. So I was able to add that to my title. And I'd always loved writing. I'd been kind of a pseudo writer my whole life. Like I was the type that I would sit down at my computer and like start typing out a novel, or I started my own blog in college, so I'd already had this sort of writing backbone going, even though that wasn't technically my degree. And so copywriter and SEO copywriter, as I call myself these days, just very quickly formed for me and transformed over the years.
So my background is in creative writing. I did go to school for
Nice.
that. But the thing that stands out to me every time I hear someone celebrate that they identify themselves as a writer, especially when they don't have the formal training, it really connects with me with roots in creativity and providing a sense of value and communication and understanding to people
Mm,
across spectrums. Like, you have a very particular style, I'm sure, in the way that you deliver information. And to know that others are able to not only appreciate, but then take value from that and the way you deliver that, it's a feeling that is really hard to explain, but one that when you hit it right, you really feel strong about whatever it is that you wrote.
yeah. 100%. And I love that your background's in creative writing because that I appreciate that so much because that's an art of its own. I'm a person that's very multi-passionate. Like I've always had a ton of hobbies, and very sort of multifaceted. Athletics is really important to me. And these days, exercise is really important to me. Art is really important to me. And then I also love the sort of like analytical data side of SEO that all of this sort of comes full circle, that we put great words into the atmosphere, into the internet. People find us, and then we can actually convert them. And what does that all look like? What is when you jumble it all up, and on the other end, what does that look like? And how do people find these businesses that I work with? It's all just fascinating to me, quite honestly.
You reminded me, because I knew that, um, because I've known Nicki for a while now,
Long time,
15 years,
probably about that. Yeah.
probably about
Well, I've
15.
known her for about 12 minutes.
Yeah, I would say 15, 12 years to 12 minutes. And I knew that, um, like the physical world, athleticism, exercise, health was really important to you. It reminded me, I'd nearly forgotten that you did like cheer coaching for like a
Yes.
college
Yeah.
a while
Yeah, I
ago.
was I was a cheerleader and then a cheerleading coach for um over 25 years of my life consecutively. So it was a big part of my life for a long time.
So when that was happening, I'm wondering if that was sort of, um, an outlet or a different space for you, because I think at that time you were
Mm.
still in the corporate hustle, right? Like you said that when
I
you first
was
started out, it just wasn't for you. Can you talk a little bit about, like, what do you mean it wasn't for you? Talk about the hustle and what you had to
mm.
let go of.
So I never entered the corporate world. I was between a potential corporate job and then a more mom and pop small business. And I chose the small business, and I'm so glad that I did. But at the time, it was a very different setup from what I have now, certainly, because it was much more 9 to 5. It was much more, you show up for your 40 hours. I remember there were many days where, even in a small business atmosphere, there's that feeling of, everybody's here till 5 o'clock, no matter what. So even if you don't necessarily have things to do, you're just sitting there.
You're
Like
stranded on
I
the
never,
island.
I never understood that. And I remember one of the first books I read about, The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I highly recommend. I love that book. Um, it really, really, that was one of the first moments I remember it just changing my perspective on sort of this traditional work week, work lifestyle that we have, and this sort of Americanized version of this corporate life and what that looks like. And I remember thinking after I read that, and I wasn't a mom yet, but I remember thinking like, there is something to this. There is something to the fact that logistically we can't have output, like an 8-hour output every single day, it's nonsense. I mean, I don't ever have 8 billable hours in my day. I simply don't. I don't know about you guys, but I can't output that much. If I have 8 billable hours in my day, that means I worked like a 12, 16-hour day, as far as I'm concerned, which is not what I want. I mean, that's silly. I want to have a life, and I want to have a balanced life.
So going from the 8 billable hours and the very structured kind of look at things, I've always described myself as someone who works in projects and bursts.
Mm,
So I do not identify well with I clock in at 8 o'clock and I work straight through until 5:30, and there's a lunch in there if I'm lucky, like that type of thing.
hmm
Can you pause? Can we pause for a second? When you say it out loud, it sounds so ridiculous, and yet there are so many people out there
Yeah,
who are doing that.
yeah,
Whether that's in an
so
office,
many.
whether that's remote, whether that's whatever, like that literally is the standard in
It's
some
the
instances.
expectation in some cases.
And I always identify with being a project based, like burst in oriented person
Yep.
because I can very, very clearly focus on one particular task, one ask, one deliverable, one thing, and I can pour a lot of energy, effort, and produce the final product and put it out there, and I'm very happy with it. But then I may bounce around to a couple little projects then for a little while,
hmm
do a little here, do a little there until I sink into another major project. And I will say that I don't know if that has it's something that is just connected to my personality or something that I've evolved from things like meeting heavy days where you need these little bursts in order to get anything done, and oftentimes in the corporate world. Um, or if it's just something that I recognized I work best when I'm just pulsing, for lack of a better term,
Mm.
and taking those moments off and taking those moments where I'm really intensely focused. I don't know if that rings true to you, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I certainly appreciate that about you. I tend to be more of a um raging ADD worker, quite honestly. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I think
We should just put
actually
a little title under you, raging ADD
it
worker.
just that's my brain. And I think it's partially from motherhood, partially from just working online. And I just always liken it to have it like I've always got 20 tabs open in my brain, and literally I have 20 tabs open right now as well. Like it just that's how it is for me. But I do notice that, and I've spent a lot of time, especially since becoming a mompreneur, taking stock in what where are the sticking points for me? Where am I slowing down with work? Where am I being a cog in my business for my team? Where am I holding up things? Why am I holding up things? You know, if it's for me, I tie a lot of my work to just being empathic and sort of going with my gut intuitively with a lot of things. And especially as a woman, just naturally, we work on a little bit different cycle than you guys. And so I've tied a lot of my work to what do I feel like doing today, quite honestly. Because if I'm not feeling it, I'm literally going to sit here and stare at my screen. But all that to say, one of the biggest things that I've had to overcome is the switching between tasks, because I find that that is a really big block for my brain and the energy that it takes to go from one task to another. And so that's why I appreciate those sort of blocked bursts so much, because it's true when you get in the zone and you get into that certain task, you can just go, but it's like the time and the energy that it takes to get into it sometimes that can be really challenging, I think, for maybe you guys, and I think certainly for a lot of people.
Um, I love where this is going because on the podcast so far, Ed and I have been working with an approach that includes connecting, challenging, and co-creating, right? So
Mm,
the connection, uh, I feel pretty strongly about it. Now I feel like we're getting into challenging, and that's challenging the mindsets and the behaviors that come with working,
mhm,
systems, habits, boundaries. And I hear you both talking about pulses or bursts, sprints to get high
mhm.
impact work done. Can we dig into that a little bit and talk a little bit about how you structure those time blocks, how that changed when you became a mom, and that sort of thing? Can you give us a little bit of
Absolutely.
insight on how you make that happen?
Yeah, yeah, and just a little bit of background, I did not know that working from home and having a kid was possible when I was pregnant the first time around. It was actually my husband who looked at me when we were, um, I said, let's go out and look at daycares because I know I'm going to need some sort of help. And we looked at these daycares and they felt like jail cells for babies. Like it was all cinder block walls and very few windows. And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, this is really sad. And I remember my husband looking at me and he's like, well, you work from home. Do you think you could make it work? And I was like, I don't know. And I started asking around to my friends and moms and business owners in my circles. And I was like, how do you do it? And the best advice anybody could give me was, you just do it. You just make it work. And I'm like, that's not a good enough answer for me. Um, so I had
No, that's
to,
not
I
gonna
had to do
fly,
that.
huh?
Is not
Well,
it.
it's just like there has to be something better than that, right? I mean, if so many people do it, like there has to be something. And I'm not a super, I think the older I get, the more I'm transitioning from type A to type B. But early on, I, I was very scheduled. I was very regimented. I'm deeply protective of my time
Mm.
still to this day. And I think you have to be with all the distractions that we have, right? And so I was looking for schedules or things that I could use to like grasp onto, right? In those early days. And I did just have to kind of learn literally on the job because I couldn't find anybody that could help me with how in the world do we do this? And you learn it. And that's why I created Becoming Mompreneur because I was like, now that I know all these things, I need to share this with the world. And so I went from working 8 to 10 hours a day. I have no idea what I did in that time. Still, it boggles my mind to an average of about 3 to 4 hours a day or 15 to 20 hours a week. And I still have that schedule, even though my son's now in first grade and in school, because that's a good output for me, like 3 to 4 hours. So I literally, to answer your question, Paul, I literally have a very basic spreadsheet that I use. Um, where I time block about 4 hours every single day. And I do like to work every day of the week. I actually work on the weekends too because things are quiet. My phone's not ringing. There's no emails coming in. And I spend a lot of the weekend doing like my own marketing stuff or my own passion projects, things like that. I build those into my time. So I literally have these 4 blocks of time. So I have basically 4 tasks that I'm trying to accomplish every day. And sometimes they're all the same project. Sometimes they're all different projects, knowing that I'm going to have that sort of energetic shift in between. And I build in a little bit of time for that. Maybe I get up and get a snack or, move my body a little bit, do a workout in between. And that kind of helps me transition in between. But I've found that keeping it really simple like that has helped me quite a bit. And then I also, I'm a big love hater of meetings because I know that's kind of a corporate thing too, right? Like having a meeting that's like, this could have been an email, you guys. Like everybody's thinking it. It's
My
just the reality.
favorite, Nikki, are the ones
Yeah.
that are meetings to plan for other meetings.
Oh gosh,
My
those are
favorite.
the best. The best. And so I limit, people have access to my calendar and you can, book with me anytime, but I put a lot of limits on like, I can only have this many meetings during these times on these days. And that has really helped uh, diminish any sort of unnecessary meetings or time spent with those, because it can take up your whole day very, very quickly.
It resonates with me very deeply about protecting. You describe it as protecting your time. I think of it as protecting my energy, or at least
Hmm.
managing my energy, or noticing when my energy is up, down, where the flow is happening.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like an everyday adjusting the sails to figure out how to get the flow to match with what the needs
Hmm.
are. And so I love that, deeply protective. And you started to get into it a little bit about how you go about doing that. Love the time blocking, love the
Hmm.
approach about restricting what can get added onto your calendar.
Yeah.
And I'm very much looking forward, now that you said there was nothing out there for you to use when you were a mom for the first time, and now you've created
Hmm.
learning. And so, ready to hear you teach and share some of those takeaways.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. So, talk a little bit about ways that you protect your time or guard your energy or sort of navigate your flow.
Yeah. Great question. So not to get too woo woo on you,
You can go woo woo.
but I think
This is a
it's a
technical
part
term
of
we need a glossary entry for.
I love it. Um, well, it's science, right? Because my body's different than your body's, right?
Mhm.
And the way that my monthly cycle works is different than men. Men run on a 24-hour schedule. I'm very, very jealous of that. I wish that we reset every day. We do not. We work on more of a monthly calendar, right? That, and many years ago, I started learning about how the female cycle and the moon cycle kind of collide, right? Because the moon is this huge gravitational pull. It controls the tides. So, of course, it has a pull on our bodies as well. And I'm deeply fascinated by astrology and astronomy and the moon cycle. And so, about the time I became a mom, I started actually incorporating my female cycle and the moon cycle in my calendar because they work all sort of together. And it's not a perfect system by any means, but there are certain times of the month for women where it's a really good time to sell, when you are when you're just ready to go, when you're ready to talk, when you're ready to be amongst people, when you're literally magnetic and you're pulling people in. There are times that it's really good to rest. There's lots of those times, for better or worse. But those are great times to like really kind of hunker down, put a blanket over your head and just like do a project, right? And maybe not have so many meetings. And then there are times when it's really good to present. There are times when it's really good um, to do a lot of marketing. And so like you've got all these ebbs and flows in there. And again, it can't be perfect, right? That's not what this is about. It's perfectionism is a made up construct as far as
Mhm.
I'm concerned. But we can at least get closer to what works and that flow that works for us, and it changes every day, like you said. So even though the moon, I know that the moon's doing this and my body's doing that, I sit down at my desk and I'm like, I'm not feeling any of that. I just want to do this. And I built in the flexibility, and that's something else that I guard like a bulldog, is the flexibility that I have, that I can kind of move things, shift things depending on, I just feel really creative today and I just need to like, there are many, many times where I just have this idea for a course or a download or um, just something creative, like a freebie that I'll give away. And I have to do it. I have this like innate need to just do it. Otherwise, it just sits in my brain and I'm just
Just like
thinking about
knocks
it
on the glass saying, "Hey,
nonstop. Yeah,
hey, hey."
nonstop. nonstop. There's a book by oh, what is it called? The woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert, right? Um, she wrote a book. Is it Big Magic? That's all about creativity. I think it's called Big Magic. I'll have to look it up. But it's all about creativity and the creative spirit, and it's very, very cool. And it's fascinating and it's basically one of the underlying themes is that if you don't answer the knock of creativity, it'll go find someone else. So I'm like, I will always answer that if I have the time and the space and the capability. So I think that's an interesting kind of thought. Um, but I think it's important no matter what, even though we've got these great schedules and even when you've got a great foundation and flow happening, that you can kind of move around with it and feel creative or feel like, you know what, today's a beautiful day outside. Let me go take my kid to the park for the entire day. That's the whole point of all this, right? Is like living a bountiful, fulfilling, joy-filled life.
So as I listen to you talk, one of the things that stands out to me is the book A Minute to Think,
Oh, I don't
Juliet
know that
Barnes.
one.
So that one is very much in line with a lot of, I think, what you are talking about in terms of being intentional about connecting to creativity and getting through busyness into
I like
actually
that.
doing things that are productive and beneficial for you, doing that good, best work, so to speak. So I would check that out. I'll share that
Yeah.
since you shared the other book that I must go and look at now because it's going to
Yes.
sit there in my head going, you need to read me.
Knock, knock.
Yeah, Ed's been
Absolutely.
on a creativity journey as well.
I love that. I love that. Just with writing or just generally
No.
in
So
life?
you mentioned like the projects and the passion projects and
Mm.
your invested personal projects, and
Hmm.
I'm doing a lot of that too right now. Like this podcast is one, for instance. Paul and I sat down about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I said, "Hey, Paul, I have this idea. Are you interested? Because you're the first name that came to mind." And here we are. Like this is the exact example
I
of
love it.
that coming to life. We've learned a lot in 120 days or so or
Hmm.
less, but it's an interesting evolution.
Yeah.
And I'd like to learn from you. I mean, talk to us a little bit about some of these switches and these flows. You have mom mode, you got entrepreneur mode, you got podcaster mode, you've got
Hmm.
clients. When you
Marketing mode,
what's that?
Yeah.
marketing mode.
Marketing mode. So when you're talking to mompreneurs or people who are thinking about how do I do this, and in the space that you were in before you started creating this content and letting your creativity flow, what mistakes do you see or hear most often from people?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think the first one that I made was kind of along the lines with actually how you explained it was like, I always think of it as wearing different hats, like mom mode, entrepreneur mode, marketing mode, all of that. And I very much was rigid about this time is for this thing. And I had a very hard time letting them sort of ebb and flow over each other or be intertwined. Um, I'm going to pause there and say something I'm very grateful for is actually the pandemic because I had a very young child um, who was only like a year or two old, which is a challenging time in childhood and motherhood. So I've got this toddler running around, but I'm also responsible for being on these Zoom meetings with like pretty like Fortune 500 CEOs. Sometimes I have many different types of clients from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. And so I'm literally, nursing or changing a diaper in the middle of the meeting. And I'm like, I'm gonna turn my screen off, be right back with you. But I would still be talking. And the lesson for me was I can be both things. Like I can be a mom and also be a badass business owner too and do what I do. Like it doesn't have to be either or. And so always say I'm grateful for the pandemic because I think it showed people that you can have that harmony in life, that many people do have families at home. And when you've got kids and chaos running behind you in all your Zoom calls, and you can also get your work done, people were like, oh, you can do both. Like you don't have to come into the office every day to get your work done and actually spend a lot of time at the water cooler wasting our corporate dollars. But you can actually be far more productive at home and take care of your family and do both and be successful at both. And so that is a big learning, I think, is that it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. And you can have all the hats on at the same time and be sort of your full self all the time without having to pigeonhole yourself or only like something for me was like I always have to appear professional and put together and not have background noise. Like I would get so upset when the dog started barking in the background of my meetings or my husband walked in. I'm like, shh, like, it looks so unprofessional to me. But I'm like, that's just life. Like there's just things moving around. Like it's not a big deal. And I had to sort of just, not let it distract me and do my job, but also understand that it's okay to be a person. It's okay to be living a life.
It's interesting because that sounds awesome. And at the same time, I think that there are folks out there, including some of those big wig corporate CEOs you talked about, who might be challenged with some of the things that you're saying, who want to have return to office mandates and
Yes.
say that being in the office is the only way to actually be successful and get things done. And then there are folks
Hmm.
who are having the real lived experience of actually doing that grind and that hustle and wanting more balance or looking
Hmm.
for ways to shift or to integrate this into their flow. What do you say to those folks, those CEOs who think that that return to office mandate is the only way to go, and those folks who are maybe listening to you now going, that sounds great, but like I could never. What would you say to them?
It's it's very timely, right? Because I know it's happening for a lot of people where they're going from these hybrid roles where it transitioned to, okay, you can come in half the time and be home half the time, but now, oh, by the way, we want you back. So I know that's very timely for a lot of people. Um, and again, I think we can look at the numbers, and that's why I mentioned the 4-hour work week at the beginning. Um, there, there's statistical data that countries in Europe have far better success rates with how happy their employees are and how much more productive they are when they only work a 4 or 6 hour day. There's a lot of data behind it because we literally can't just sit here for 8 hours at a computer and at a desk and just produce. It's just, it's nonsense. And so to those, it
I
just
love that you
is like,
say it's nonsense. I love that.
it is because it's like we need time in our brains to relax and to have a meal. The number of people I'm sure, like you, Ed, that just like go through, and I know my brother's one of them. My brother works from home actually with his two daughters, and he will forget to eat all the time. And I'm someone that's like, I will eat, I will move my body. I do not work well if I don't eat. I like my blood sugar drops. I don't feel good. Like I can't work like that. Um, but to those CEOs and things, I would say, take a really good look at how happy your people are
Mm.
in the office versus at home, how productive they actually are, because I would argue that a lot of employees can get the same amount of work done in a 4-hour day at home that they can in 8 hours in the office. I really truly believe that.
Well,
That,
especially if there's a
yeah.
commute involved. If
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a half
Gosh.
hour, an hour or more dead time a day, some people use that, I think, as their reset. But
Mm,
you don't have to do that. You can spread that reset throughout the day, and to your point, be a lot more intentional about getting the things done that need done and keeping up, so to speak, or even working ahead in
yeah,
those when you don't have to worry about those types of things.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. And then it gives people the autonomy too, right? Of like perhaps they don't work very well first thing in the morning. There's a lot of people
yeah.
that are night owls and it's actually better for them emotionally, functionally to sleep in a little bit later and actually work a little bit later. Or perhaps like because of mompreneuring and my lifestyle, for many years, nap times and night times were like my golden moments of getting stuff done. And that's when I would have my sprints, right? Is like nap time, time to work, nighttime, time. And I still love working at night. Like I still love almost every night you'll find me at my computer from like 8 to 10 at night after my son goes to bed. And I get some stuff done because nothing's chiming, nothing's going off. There's no emails coming in. It's very quiet. I can do some of my best creative work at that hour because I tend to be more of a night owl. So my brain's going then. And I think giving people that autonomy of, when do you work best? How do you work best? And giving them a little more space to figure that out is instrumental in having a good workforce.
Gosh, it's so human and it's so real. And I think it ties back to what success looks like, um
Yep.
what people want. I go back to my theater background and my the way that I sort of observe groups of people and the human experience from the perspective of like, what do they want? What's their motivation? What are the tactics that they use? What do those
Hmm.
tactics produce? And I think about that with each of those characters, um, in what we're talking about. Ultimately, though, for all of them, isn't happiness and joy and alignment, isn't that overarching? Isn't that kind of like a overarching success metric?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it's worth noticing that. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, you've flagged happiness a couple times, and I just want to make
Hmm.
sure that I
Oh
notice
yeah.
that and say that I think I hear that as a driving undercurrent to what you do.
Absolutely. If I'm not happy in what I'm doing, then not a, what do they say? Like, oh, happy wife, happy life or something like that. But I think like for all of us, it's like I do notice about men and to your credit that I feel like men will tend to grind a little bit longer than women will in something that they don't like and something that they're uncomfortable with because you guys are just really good at like I have to do this, I have to get this done. I think women will much more quickly like change a job role or get out of a bad job situation if they're unhappy. Um, but yes, I think I mean, we should all have happiness in our life, right? And if your work, especially the thing that you're doing a lot of your life does not bring you joy, then what are you doing? Like
So much. We spend so much time.
so much time work. And so when you look at your life, like we spend years of our lives working and making money and making an impact and doing all of these things. You might as well like it, right? Or you might as well love it. Better yet, it might as well bring you joy.
Happiness is a verb. That is
Yeah,
the name of a program that my life coach, Cindy Bettino, runs.
I love that.
And that resonates with me a lot. What
Big
inspired you
time.
to start a podcast? Since you're
Um,
on a podcast right now, we can be very
yeah,
meta.
yeah, it is very meta. It was actually an idea by my scaling coach, that I work with, my scaling business coach. She brought it up as a way to market my business and also to perhaps bring about sales and more of like a functional business sense. I use it more as very similar to what you guys are doing as a way to chat, bring conversations to light. I end up talking to a lot of other marketers because what I've basically found is like we all live in our little bubbles and we all do our own things and we don't necessarily communicate. We see what each other are doing and we kind of, look from afar, but it's more of a bringing together of entrepreneurs specifically who are oftentimes in marketing and in lots of different industries and just talking about what's on top for them, like what's interesting, what's unique, what's going on for them, what feels hard, what's working, what's not working, and just really digging through all the BS to be like, what's really going on here? Because we don't always talk about those things. Um, so it's become uh, a very cool place, I think, to learn about lots of different tactics, sure, but also what brings people joy in their businesses or what they're passionate about or what they're worried about, and just sort of humanizing the whole experience a little bit more.
As I listen to this and I think about, you called out, that's kind of what we're doing here, is creating a space to explore these things that people don't oftentimes necessarily have the time, energy, or think specifically to explore. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that from the standpoint of you're taking something that is, it can be very, very, very academic, very deep in terms of the knowledge well and the best practices and the things that you do. And you are putting that in context of the real world.
Mm,
And I think that's one of the ways that this medium connects to so many folks. Like, they connect with this style of delivery from that perspective, myself included. Like, I think about the things that I listen to, and I could go read about these things, and I could go go to my official researcher, Paul, over there and say, "Hey, Paul, what do you know about this?" But I'd much rather listen to a human voice relaying examples, relaying situations, relaying reality,
mm,
because I can contextualize that and I can connect with that a lot easier than I can these 100 pages that happen to be, up from this journal or that.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a powerful medium, and I love the structure that you guys have put together as far as like the connecting, the challenging, the co-creation. I think that's beautiful, like that arc. I think that's incredible.
Thank you. In the work that I do, I often have to challenge myself to include action and a takeaway. Otherwise, I could
Mm,
just sit and shoot, talk. This is a clean rated podcast. I could just sit and chat and rumble and just we could just hit it off and chat about things all day. It's sort of a nudge for myself to be like, what's the takeaway, what's the practice, what can
mm,
I go try this week, what can a listener go try? It's sort of like that value add piece. I'm a person of value who values people and looks for ways to add value to them, and so
mm-hmm,
that's the thinking behind it. It's been shifting a bit since we hit record and started doing this messy. As I've been listening back as they're being released, I think we have 3 that are live as we're talking
mm-hmm.
right now, and I listen back and I start it shifts a little bit. What surprised you once you started recording? You've got a lot more episodes out there in the world than we do. Can you give us a little bit of advice as new
I'm
pod?
only a little. I appreciate that. I'm only a little ahead of you guys. I finished my first season over the summer. I was actually just thinking about this the other day. I was gonna try to record a second season prior to giving birth in December, but I just priorities, right? I have to be mindful of that. So I think I might wait till the spring. Um, so I've got about 15 episodes up, but I think very similarly, I learned I had more of a structure at the beginning, and very similarly towards the end, I kind of focused more in on, I would ask people prior to interviews what feels, what are you really passionate about right now? Like what's going on with you that you're feeling really just high vibe about? Let's talk about that. So we do the top 3 things or so, and then just literally structure the whole conversation around that. And I'm a big believer in rising tides raise all ships. So I'm very transparent in that, this is good transparency for me. It's good transparency for you because, you know, I want to help each other out, right? And even people, there's a couple of interviews that I did with probably quote unquote direct competitors, whether it's other SEOs or other copywriters, because I mean, there's enough for all of us, right? And so I think having that transparency, that saying those things out loud, and
Wow.
being clear about it, that it took me a little bit too, to say like it's really clear that we do the same thing, and that's okay because we can still talk about it
The
and we can still
competition
be
is within
colleagues.
ourselves, right?
It's very true, very
Well,
true.
I
Yeah.
would love to jump in here too, because the way it's always been explained to me is you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it as that's my competition, we're competing for X. Or you can think about it from the standpoint of I have a cup, an empty cup, and I'm standing in the ocean. And if I scoop water out of the ocean, I've got a cup full of water and there's still a whole ocean.
Hmm.
Whereas if I'm thinking about it the other way, I've scooped this water and haha, this is my water, and I'm going to go take it off to my little corner and make my own sandcastle.
Hmm.
Is definitely a
Absolutely.
scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset
Hmm.
differential, I think.
Big time. I have thankfully actually been seeing this because one of my intake questions with clients when I'm working with someone new is, do you have any competition? And I've kind of solidified that by saying, it doesn't have to be direct competition. It could be somebody that, like, you're a mom and pop shop, people are going to Amazon instead. Like, you're not competing directly with Amazon, but actually you are, right? Because people want things on their doorstep.
Isn't
I'm
But
pretty sure
everybody?
this podcast is competing with Amazon.
I mean, we all are in
I mean, we
some
all
way,
tried
shape,
to
or
log
form.
into things a couple days ago because Amazon's system
Uh,
went down. Let's
oh
just
my gosh, everything was down. Everything, even in my house, I'm like, this is problematic. Um, but I've been noticing over the past 5, even 10 years, that people are like, yeah, I don't really have competition. Nope, I don't like, no. And I love that because people see there's room for everyone. They also see that, like, I provide my my thing, my product, my service, whatever it is, in this way. That person does it in that way, and that fulfills that audience. We all have sort of a different take on things and the way we do things as well. So I love that. I hear that. I rarely get a client that says, like, this is a direct competitor of mine. We have to go after them, sort of a thing. It's not that mentality anymore, and I absolutely love that.
as you both fashion yourselves writers and you identify as writers, I think that words matter. I also often say all words are made up. And the whole purpose of these words that we put on paper and sounds that we make with our faces is just to communicate experiences, to communicate our perspective, to
Yeah.
understand each other more effectively. I heard you use two different words. You said your product, and then you said your service or practice, right? And I think
Mm,
those are distinguishing between, like, I think it's almost like giving the word that connects people and in their mindset, serving it up to them. I do think
mm,
of what you do and what I've heard from you today as a service practice
hmm.
rather than a product. That's just my take. I
Yeah,
know that it is
absolutely.
viewed as a product in some ways, but I just wanted to call it out and really appreciate that as you are both writers and you choose words very carefully. I
Mm.
noticed that little shift, the way we think about ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and people self-identify that way, right? They're like, I'm a product provider or I'm a service provider, and it's very clear for people which they are. Um,
Yeah.
and it is very interesting. I guess I kind of mold them together for myself too, but I'm a service provider, but I provide a product too. So it's like it's all the same to me. But people are uh they're very guarded about that sometimes. Like, I provide a service and this is what it is, and they want to spell that out. And sometimes for my clients, that's part of the problem, is that their customers don't think of them that way.
Ah, that's true.
Hmm.
And communicating that framing could make all the difference. Ed, as a new podcaster and as the one who's really taking the reins here, a lot of what I do is just show up and talk. You do kind of like the heavy lifting of it all. Can you share maybe a one current challenge that you have, that you could invite Nicki to share her take on? Is it editing? Is it promoting? What are your thoughts?
So now, okay, so we're 3 episodes in as the recording of this,
Well.
and I would say that the initial challenge was figuring out the editing piece, and Paul and I talked a lot about in the first edit. I think I must have shared 5 different edits with him at one point over the course, because some of them we were like, I relied on a tool to do an AI edit, and
Hmm.
that was out quick. Mainly because it made everything sound so choppy and
Mm.
so produced, and that's not, obviously, we're in a very messy space rather than a very polished space.
Yeah.
But as we've evolved through that, the editing, I actually learn more during the editing now than I think when we sit and record these, and I think about the time that we spend together. Things don't stand out necessarily in the moment, but then when you're listening to them, especially sometimes multiple times, you're like, "Oh, this is something I wish we would had a follow-up now to go through
Mm.
this, because I think this is an episode itself," which it may be. But so it's not the editing right now for me. It's actually the getting the folks to the table to have these chats that I think is the most
Mm.
difficult. We chose to be season based because I can't see a world where Paul and I showing up every week and doing this as such a huge time investment, to say that 300 or 52 of these in a row, and by the way, that's just going to loop for 52 more and 52 more,
Hmm.
etc.
It's a lot.
And anyone that does this multiple times a week, bless you, but I don't get it. At any
Agreed.
rate, so doing it in seasons and doing it with a creative adventure has been important, but finding those right voices to join the room with us, I think,
Hmm.
has been one of the biggest challenges. Because I
Yeah.
don't want to just go through my phone book and say, "Hey, you want to be on a podcast? Hey, you want
Right.
to be on a podcast?" We could,
Yeah.
but
And I, man, I hear you on that one, because it is hard. And I had a couple of episodes where I had sometimes I find it's also hard getting people to talk once they're on. Some people just innately are a little more closed off, and it takes a little while to get there with people. And there were some that I just and I personally think of this as my superpower of, like, digging in. I call myself a marketing therapist sometimes, because it's my job to dig in and, like, get deep down in there. Um, and I'm like, I can't get there with you. Come on, we could do this. And some people are just more closed off, and that's okay. But to your point, finding people, that is actually where my scaling coach helped me out. She had this whole uh, basically campaign that we did on LinkedIn, and I was able to, um, because it's a soft sell, really, to be like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? You want to talk? You want to talk about yourself? we'll promote you. Like people are like, yeah, I'll talk about myself for an hour.
Want to
Absolutely.
spend an hour and a half just hanging out and talking? Sure.
Yeah, yeah, people, and I was surprised how many people were like, "Absolutely, I'll do that." I mean, I spoke with for like kind of pre-season 2 talks and chats. I spoke with somebody super high up in the Club Pilates corporate structure. She's over in England, and then I spoke with somebody that's really high up at Lexus that I was like, you want to talk to me? This is amazing. And she was throwing around like industry, not secrets, she wasn't sharing anything that she shouldn't, but I
The
was like,
insight.
I am the insights. I was like, I can't believe this, that if you can get people on the call, the people will open up. And that's amazing. So LinkedIn was a great resource for that. And using even like their sales navigator tool, I highly recommend. And then you can do very specific searches for very specific, like the types of people, types of industries that you're looking for. And then I would just send messages, hey, this is what I'm doing. You can check it out. Just want to have a quick conversation with you. And this is sort of the goal of the podcast. And again, people were very much more open to it than I expected.
I think the biggest challenge, especially early on, was we didn't have something that I could send them to say, this is what it looks like, feels
Yeah.
like.
And
Is.
it's challenging.
And Paul and I have sent messages out to various people at different points. And one of them in particular, I won't say who it was, but I reached really high and I said, oh, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And I figured, I told Paul, I said, the worst that happens is I never hear back from this person.
Exactly.
The best that happens is they at least give me an answer. It might be no, and I'm fine with
Hmm.
that, but I am in the worst scenario with this person where I haven't heard back. But at the same time, there are what, 8 billion people, Paul, I believe is the
8
number that you
billion
used.
people in the world, Ed. There are 8 billion
Yeah.
people in the world.
Hmm.
I think we can find another handful of them to finish out the season.
I think so. And what's really cool about it is what I've noticed is once you develop a cadence, once you kind of establish some of these relationships, people are very, very willing to say, oh, I know so and so, so and so, and so and so that you would love. Can I introduce you to them? And so their network becomes your network, and people are
Yeah.
more than willing to share those names at that point. Um, and isn't it such a good sales lesson too, with just asking, like the worst thing that people will say is no. I mean, what is it? You strike out 100% of the time that you don't take the
You don't
shot or
try.
something. I'm
Yeah.
butchering that, but generally
Just mix
speaking,
forth metaphors and throw it all in, right?
yes, yes, all the metaphors.
I love it. I love the swing. I believe that it might be from The Office, or you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
You don't take. Yes, thank you. Thank
And
you for fixing my
I
butchering.
I went to a conference this summer, and I saw the um, owner and founder of the Savannah Bananas.
Mm,
Um, he was
Now
fan-
that is an individual.
he was fantastic to listen to, and it just reminded the swinging thing made me think of him, because he said that one of the things that has stayed with him since he was little and he was in t-ball and he wasn't good at sports, his
mm,
dad would encourage him by saying, swing hard in case you hit it. And that has stayed
good
with me
advice.
as well, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah,
take the swing. You might
take
hit
the
it.
swing.
You're probably going to miss it a bunch of times. But that's okay. This has been really
Well,
fun. And I know we're
In
going to
that
run.
instance, though, Paul,
Sorry,
before
Ed?
you transition, in that instance, if you look at it from the baseball end of things, you are making millions of dollars if you hit it 3 out of 10 times.
exactly.
So let's
Doing
apply
pretty
that.
good.
That's right. That's awesome. So I'm going to transition us rapid fire, Nicki. A mom says to
Yeah.
you, I'll start my business when my kids are older. What do you tell her?
Start it now. Why not? Oh my goodness. It teaches them it teaches them, and it teaches you so many good skills. Don't wait. Don't ever wait.
Awesome. What is a mindset or a micro habit or a practice that everyone listening might try this week? For me, is time blocking the calendar. That one was a big
Mm,
one for me. It is something that I've done here and there and played with, but I really love that approach. I really love that thinking of limiting what can go on. Matter of fact, I remember when I was doing my settings in my calendar, there was a button or a choice that was like, what's the maximum number of meetings that people are
mm-hmm.
allowed to schedule on a day? And I ignored it at the time, but I'm going to go back to that
Go
now.
back to it.
What about you all?
Absolutely.
What's something that folks can try or take away that you
I
took
think
away from today?
do something that brings you joy, like truly joyful.
For
Thank you.
me, it is kind of along those lines. It's being aware enough to know that what that is. And I
Mm,
think for the longest time, I did not know. I couldn't have told you at that time or at a time. Like I couldn't have honed in and said, it is this that brings me joy because I didn't have in my head time to think about that.
mhm.
So taking that time, blocking the time, finding out what the happiness is. You're all on those two sides for me. I'm in the middle, of course. But so making that time to figure out what that thing is
Yeah,
and figuring out how to get there if I'm not there now.
love that.
Well, one of the things that brings me joy and happiness is chatting with lovely humans
Mm,
who bring joy and happiness into the world. And I'm so grateful to have spent this time with both of you. I'm grateful for you who are very guarded and protective of your time and your energy, Nikki, for uh, gracing us with some of it
my
during this
pleasure.
time together. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm super grateful for you. And I want to give you the opportunity to let folks know um, a little bit about how they can find where else can they find you? Website, course, podcast. Tell them a little bit about
Absolutely.
it before we wrap up. How do they find more about
Absolutely.
Nikki Ong?
Well, first of all, I same to you guys. I'm very grateful for this time. Having these conversations it brings me joy as well. So I really appreciate these talks and these conversations. It's important to have, and it's important for people to hear. So thank you guys for doing this and putting the time and energy into something like this because it's not easy, and I appreciate you both for that. Um, as far as where you can find me, the best places are my website. You can find me at nickiong.com. Nickiong.com is sort of my main umbrella site. That's where you'll find more information about mompreneuring, tips, tricks, the course. I've got a freebie or two on there about starting a new business if you're interested, ideas for businesses if you're not sure where to start, and then of the course, of course, which is really about the foundation and setting up your business and having the right mindset practices. And then to the point of functionally, what does a schedule look like with a little kid at home with you or infant?
Or two,
And
soon,
then,
right? Yes,
or
with the
two or
infant
three or
soon.
however many you have,
I mean,
however many
pretty
you have.
quickly they get to the point where they're doing this and it goes
Yes,
up
as
on
I
your
say,
wall
Ed
for your
has
phone.
two.
Yes. Oh, those are amazing. And then SEO copywriting wise, you can find me at simplesprout.studio. That's where I talk about all the fun stuff about SEO, blogging, and copywriting.
Thank you. Ed, do you want to take us out
Thank
as you're
you.
probably going to put music over this last part as you're wrapping up before we close?
It is the producer end of things, yes. But Nikki, thank you. I'm hoping that a bunch of people go and find out all the things that you do and finding ways that they can connect to you and really grow through that knowledge that you're providing. You've solved a huge gap in the market, and not only just from the standpoint of it being a gap in the market, but thinking about all those folks that were in your spot that now they have something to go to. They have a place to go that they're not starting from scratch. So for that, amazing. It's fantastic to hear about that. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
spending the time with us. And Paul, I think it's about that time.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you to those who
Thank you,
have
guys.
listened. Thank you to those of you who made it to the end of a podcast. I know I personally struggle with making it to the ends of podcasts. Sometimes I force myself to go all the way
But
to
not
the
this
end.
one.
No, yes, not this one. I do. I force myself to go all the way to the end. But for those of you who did, thank you. Really appreciate it. And please just remember to take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great rest of your day.